You're arriving in Portugal, maybe to stay, and you so badly want to make a good impression on the locals. There's just one problem. You are terrified of attempting Portuguese. You just know that your accent will make you stick out like a sore thumb and probably have people responding to you in English. If this is something that you are worrying about, then today's video is for you, because I am going to show you how to navigate 5 practical situations like a local would, with particular emphasis on getting the European Portuguese pronunciation perfect. So if you need help and you are ready for this lesson, give this video a like. And if you are new here, seja bem-vindo. My name is Liz and I help people who are relocating to Portugal to build their confidence and conversation skills in Portuguese. So subscribe and stick around if that's what you are looking for. Now, I do have a whole series on practical situations that all include a full dialogue with native speakers. I'm going to link that playlist below. So if you want a deep dive after this video, then go check those out. But today, I'm going to walk you through the absolute basics that you are going to need. So let's start off with greeting somebody. Maybe it's your landlord or your host. As we know, in Portugal, a little bit of politeness can go a really long way. So let's start with bom dia or boa tarde, depending on the time of day. So right off the bat, we want to be careful with pronunciation. You will have noticed there was no m sound in bom dia. No. Instead, we want a nasal O. Remember, when a word ends in M, I have to nasalize the vowel that goes before it. So this should sound like this. Bom dia. This and 6 other very difficult sounds are covered in my free pronunciation guide with accompanying audio. So if you need some help with your Portuguese pronunciation, the link to download that is in the description. We also want to be careful with the word tarde. If you've seen either this video on how to lose your American accent or this video on how to lose your English accent, we don't want to say tarde with no R or tard with too much of an R sound. Instead, we want to make sure we're doing the tapped R, tapping the roof of our mouth with our tongue, tarde. Make sure you practice that one. A question I'm asked a lot is, when does boa tarde become boa noite? Because if you're arriving in the evening, you might want to say boa noite instead. Now, the answer is this kind of varies. Is it post 7 p.m? Is it when it's dark? I don't really know. And to be honest, when you ask Portuguese people, they can't agree on it either. So just listen out and see what people are saying. I tend to only really use boa noite once it's dark. So once the greeting is out of the way, we need to exchange some pleasantries. Here are a few. Tudo bem? This is how are you? And again, we need to look out for that nasal E in bem. We're not saying bem, it's bem. Obrigado por me receber. Or obrigado por nos receber. This is thank you for greeting us, for meeting us, for having us. So this would be a really great one to say to your host. A viagem foi boa. The trip was good. Once again, look out for that nasal E in viagem. If you want to introduce yourself and talk about yourself a little bit, you could go with chamo-me and then your name. So I would say chamo-me Liz. And then I could expand with where I am from. Sou de Inglaterra. That double R is really tricky. You can either do a R, a trilled R. Maybe if you're a Spanish speaker, that one might come a little bit easier. Or you can do a H. That's the one I go with. If you're able to use these, you are already on your way to fitting in. You might even endear yourself to your host so much that you become friends, and that's happened to so many of my students. So if you are relocating here full time, then I highly recommend you check out my live conversation with my student Sharon. She's become such good friends with her landlords, Carlos and Rosa. It was such a lovely story and a great example of how someone who didn't come to live in an expat bubble really got out there and blended in. And succeeded. So next up we have ordering, whether it's a coffee or a full meal. Let's learn how to do it politely and with the correct pronunciation. So to say I would like, you will say queria. There's that tapped R again. Make sure you're not saying Korea. We want queria. If you need some help, just think of the country Korea and just change it a little bit so that it sounds a bit more Portuguese. Korea. A question I get asked a lot is, why do we say queria and not quero if quero is I want? And the truth is, it's the same verb. It's coming from to want or to desire, but we're just putting it in a different tense because that's the polite way to do it, okay? We put it in what's called the imperfect tense, and that makes it a polite request. If you want to see more about how to be polite, then I do have a whole video on that over here. I'll link it in the description so you can check it out next. You're also going to need the words for please, which is se faz favor. Now, they do also say por favor here, and again, people ask me what the difference is between the two. There isn't much of a difference. They do mean the same thing, but se faz favor is a lot more common in Portugal. So I would go with that one. It will make you sound super local. Some questions they might ask you in these interactions. E para beber? And to drink. So this is like saying, and what would you like to drink? So if you've ordered your food but not your drink yet, this is exactly what they are going to ask. The question that always comes after, if you've ordered water, might seem a little bit strange. Fresca or natural? What does that mean? Fresh or natural? It actually doesn't mean that at all. It means cold, fresca, or room temperature, natural. So this is the difference between water that has been kept in a fridge and water that has been kept on a shelf. When you finished ordering, they might ask you, é tudo? Meaning, is it everything, or is that all? And you're going to answer with exactly the same words. É tudo, it is everything. Now this is a really good trick with Portuguese. Sometimes you will ask a question, again like, tudo bem? And you will answer with the exact same words but different intonation to be your answer. Tudo bem? Everything okay? Everything's okay. É tudo? Is that all? É tudo? That is all. I talk about this in my video Don't Say Sim, where I talk about how you can actually use the verb that's in the question to answer in the affirmative instead of just saying sim all the time. It's a way to make you sound much more like a local. Another way of saying the same thing is mais alguma coisa? Anything else? So if you have ordered something, then you are going to need help paying the bill as well. So if you want to ask how much something costs, very straightforward question. Quanto custa? Now, again, look out for the pronunciation of the S there. We have vowel, S, consonant. And that tells me that this S should be pronounced as a sh. This is one of the things I go through in detail in my free lesson for beginners. So if you haven't signed up for that yet, I call it my ultimate quick start guide to conversation. So I'll link it in the description. I would love to see you there. Now, if you are asking for the bill, you will say a conta se faz favor. The bill is a conta, but I want you to look out for how you're going to pronounce that A. It's the word for the, right? The bill. It's going to be a closed A. Instead of a, open A, we want a. It's kind of like the A we have in the word away in English. A conta. You might hear some people call it the continha, and if you want to hear more about that, I have a whole video over here about the ways that the Portuguese add inho and inha on the end of words and why they do it. There are several reasons, and sometimes there is no reason. Like, why would we call it the little bill? Maybe it's an expensive bill. It's just a way of making things sound more colloquial, more affectionate, okay? So look out for that as well. People also always ask me about tipping here in Portugal, and it is a really big, important question because, of course, in the US, the UK, it can be quite different. So honestly, here in restaurants, it's not required to give a certain percentage as a tip. However, of course, it is a really nice thing to do. So even though it's not expected, like it would be in, say, America, to be a certain percentage and always given, here in Portugal, it's not expected, but it's definitely still a really nice thing to do for the waitstaff. So the next essential situation you may need to prepare for is asking for somebody's help. Now, there are two ways to get somebody's attention in Portuguese. The first one is desculpe. Desculpe. So look out for the sh, that S should be a sh, and that E at the end needs to be a closed E, so it's almost like you can't hear it. It's sort of trapped in your throat, okay? The second way is by saying com licença. Com licença. There's that nasal O again, the same that we had in bom dia, okay? Now, what is the difference between these two words? They both mean excuse me, okay? But they have slightly nuanced meanings. One is asking for forgiveness and one is asking for permission. So the way that I always explain it, desculpe comes from the verb to ask for forgiveness, and com licença is coming from asking for permission, okay? But these can be used interchangeably when you're looking to get somebody's attention, and they're both polite to use. So the actual phrase for could you help me? Podia ajudar-me? Podia ajudar-me? Again, look out for that R, don't leave it hanging, don't say a R sound, we want a R tapped R. Another really easy question is, may I? Now, you don't need to know the whole sentence of what it is that you want to do. I've covered this in my free lesson for beginners. I talk about one-word wonders. Also in my video on how to fake good Portuguese, you can just learn really short words that have really big meanings. So if I say posso, which means may I, and then if I start doing whatever it is that I want to do, maybe taking someone's chair or opening a window or even sitting down in a seat, then somebody is going to know you're asking, may I do this? And they will say, sim, não, claro, força, whatever it is. So to wrap up, the final practical situation you're going to need to navigate is thanking people and saying goodbye. Now, I do have a whole video on different ways to say thank you over here, but the most simple phrase is muito obrigado. Or, if like me, you are female, you will say muito obrigada. Now, a really nice one that I love to teach my students early on because it makes them sound so native and so natural is to say obrigada eu. Now, this is what you're going to say in response to someone saying thank you to you. It sounds complicated, but hear me out. So imagine you've just paid for something and the cashier says, thank you, obrigado, but you're the one who got what you needed. So you would say, no, thank you. And that's what obrigado eu means. This is such a good one. I really recommend you trying it out and impressing the people in the shop. Another way to say thank you so much to someone is agradeço imenso. Finally, to say goodbye to someone, you might want to say, see you next time. Até a próxima. Now that X always confuses people because they want to say até a próxima, but we need to make it a S sound, próxima. A simple colloquial goodbye is tchau, but again you can make it more Portuguese by adding the inho onto it, tchauzinho. Or another common way to say goodbye to somebody, especially amongst friends, is beijinhos. Again, that's the diminutive, the inho added onto the word beijos, which is kisses. So beijinhos. This was a long lesson, but exactly the kind of thing you need to know if you want to make a good impression when you get to Portugal. So use this video to practice and let me know in the comments how it goes when you arrive. If you enjoyed this lesson and you want more, I have over 100 videos on this channel, so go and check them out. And don't forget to sign up for my free lesson for beginners if you haven't already. I call it my ultimate quick start guide for conversation, and I would love to see you there. I'll be back at the same time next week with more tips and tutorials to improve your confidence and conversation skills in Portuguese, so I hope to see you there. Ciao for now.